We begin at the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Kuf Yudal Dam at Beis. Sagt the Heilige Mishnah, Hamake Kela v'Sfarav b'Yad Acher. Person recognizes by somebody that he has, whether his vessels or his Sfarim in his hands. And we're talking about a person that bought this in the marketplace. He bought it by somebody, and then the owner comes along and says, "You bought this from someone. It belongs to me. It was stolen from me." And there's actually a rumor in the city about these items that it was stolen from this owner. So the buyer swears to the owner how much he paid for them, and then and he gets paid by the owner what he paid for them, and he gives them back to the owner. And then afterwards, the owner is going to have to deal with the ganav for the fact that he had to pay for this. That's what Rashi here says, that we're talking about over here in the case when it's before Yush. This is the halacha dafka before Yush. We'll see more about this in the Gemara, what the halacha is after Yush. Vim lav, if there is no rumor in the city about these kalim or these sfarim that they were stolen, lav kolei menu. This person is not believed to come and say that these items that you have in your hand were stolen from me and someone sold them to you. Shani yomer, because in a regular case I just say that this owner sold it to someone, and now that person, that buyer, now sold it to this individual. We're not going to trust him to just come along and claim that it got stolen from him. There has to be grounds to such a kind of claim. When the Mishnah said, when there is a rumor that this person's kalim or sfarim got stolen, so what? How can we rely on such a kind of a rumor? Leichish, why aren't we still afraid, Dilmas of Ninu, that maybe this owner did sell it and never got stolen from him? And Vahuniyo Kamapik Shma. And he, the owner himself, he's the one that lets out this rumor that it got stolen from him in order that he could then go and take it back from this buyer that bought it from the person that he sold it to. How can we still rely on a rumor like this? So the Gemara is going to go through a lot of details and explain that we're talking about a very, very specific and clear rumor that has a real foundation to it that we actually can rely on it. So the case of it is there were people that were guests staying in this person's house. And this person got up in the middle of the night and started screaming. And he said, "Nignavu kelai," that my guests, they stole my kalim and left my house. So it's not stam a rumor that he let out in the city, but this actually happened in the middle of the night when he had guests. He started screaming that they stole from him. But the Gemara says this is not enough. Kol shekain ilamotza. For sure, in such a kind of a case, he can still find an excuse. In other words, he can create this story. He'll have guests by him, and he'll start screaming. When he has guests by him, he'll start screaming and then create this kind of a kail. Still not enough to rely on that we can know that it was actually stolen from him. Rav Kahana Messiah Bab Mishmei Rav. So the Gemara explains, Rav Kahana said that what Rav said, Rav continued and explained that it's not stam that he had guests by him and he started screaming that his kalim got stolen, but we see that there's now a tunnel that was dug under his house that these Ganav went and took out these kalim. And we see that these people that were staying over in his house, they went out and they have these bundles of vessels on their shoulders, and everybody is saying that this person's kalim got stolen. So this is something that we could rely on, that we know that his kalim got stolen. Still, Gemara goes further. The Mishnah gave two examples. A person claims that his kalim got stolen, and this lekeach now bought it in the marketplace from the Ganev, or it's a case of svarim. So it's kalim, not svarim. The Mishnah said even if he claims that his svarim got stolen, we also rely on this rumor. If he's claiming kalim or he's claiming also svarim got stolen from him, it has to be that the rumor was that not only his kalim got stolen, but his svarim also got stolen. But how do you know exactly which kalim and which svarim got stolen? What quality they wore, what type of svarim they wore? Maybe we should be concerned that what got stolen were smaller kalim or smaller svarim, the katan rabrevi, And now based on this rumor, the rumor has good grounds to it, but still, maybe based on this rumor, he's claiming something else, bigger kelim, other svarim that are much more valuable. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina explains, no, the rumor here has to be very specific. The ka'amri sefer ploini ploini, that before these buyers bought it, when these kelim or these svarim got stolen from this person, from these guests that he had, the rumor was very specific about which svarim or which kelim got stolen from him. Still, the Gemara asks, maybe what got stolen, they say which svarim they wore or which kelim they wore. Maybe they were older, and he's claiming that they were brand new. Amarav, so Rav said, or the other gears over here is Amarav Bavo, Kogoin the Ka'amri, Halolu, Kalov Shalplani, Halolu, Swarav Shalplani. The rumor was very specific when these guests stole these kalim, and we see that these guests have these kalim or svarim in their possession. The rumor was these kalim, these guests stole when they took from this person's house. That's the case that our Mishnah was saying, that now the original owner comes to the lekeach and says, these are my svarim, give it back to me. And we rely on such a rumor which is so clear and so specific. What was the example over here? And this is all started off here with, this is what Rav said. This is the kind of rumor that it has to be. So the point here was that Rav said that it's the guests that were in a person's house and they dug a tunnel and they stole the svarim, or they stole the kalim. But the question is, could have Rav said that this is what the rumor is? But didn't Rav say, a person that digs a tunnel under someone's house, and he comes and he steals kalim v'yotza, and he leaves his house, potter. He's potter to pay back these kalim. My time, why is he potter? Bidami kanonu, because with his blood he acquired them. Which means a person that digs a tunnel under someone's house. So the pasuk says, "Imim machteres yimotza ganev ein leidomim," because we know that this person that digs a tunnel under someone's house, he's ready to kill, to do his geneva. He knows that the owner may come and attack him, and he's ready to even kill. So this is a person that's a reidif, and therefore he's chayiv misa. You can kill him. In such a case where he steals, when he's chayiv misa, so because he's chayiv misa, kom lebederabim minei, and he's not chayiv to pay. So therefore, the same thing would be the lekeach. The lekeach that bought it from the ganev, you also potter to give it back, because the ganev was potter to pay because it was chayiv misa. So how could Rav give such an example here, that there was a tunnel and therefore you stole it through the tunnel? In such a case, you potter to pay for this. Answers the Gemara, no, there's no comparison to that halacha of the machteres. Why? Because immediately the kananu, when do you say that a ganev that digs a tunnel and steals, that he's chayiv misa and therefore he doesn't have to pay? B'bava machteres, if he's entering into the house through this tunnel. This is a person that is coming and he's putting himself in a position that we're allowed to kill him, because we know that he's digging a tunnel and he's ready to kill, so therefore his blood is permitted, you're allowed to kill him, so in such a case he doesn't pay. Avalhani, here the example that Rav gave for what this rumor was, what are we talking about? They were guests. They came into the house like guests. They didn't come in to attack this person, ready to kill this person. Once they were in the house, they stole the kalim and they dug a tunnel to leave the house. In such a case, there's no chiv misa. They weren't ready to kill anyone, and so therefore, in such a case, you're going to be chayiv to pay for this gneva. Yeah.
If he kills
no. Hutta, his dam is mutter. That's the halacha of machteres imatza aganov. That's called a chiv misa. That's
if you get killed, there's no mominus.
No, the chiyuv misa. It's not only if you get killed. By a kamli with the rabbin, they had some chiyuv misa, patis from the chiyuv of mammon. So over here, because he's chayiv misa, he's a reidev. He's chayiv misa, so there's no chiyuv for the money. Okay, now the Gemara, after all of this, the Gemara explained that there has to be such a specific rumor in order for the owner to claim that what the buyer got here in the marketplace was really his. On this, Rava said, Lo shanu, this was all set, that you have to have such a specific rumor, Ela balabayis ha'asui limker kelev. When it's a person, the original owner that owned these dishes or these vessels, he's the kind of person that sells these things. So then, unless there's such a specific rumor, he can't come and claim that it got stolen from him, because we're going to assume that he sold it. But if it's a person, the balabas, a private person that owns these kalim, he doesn't sell them. He owns a set of dishes, and now you find it. A buyer has it. He bought it in the marketplace. You don't have to have such a specific rumor that these and these kalim or these and these svarim were stolen from the guests that dug a tunnel and so on. It's enough if there's just a plain rumor that it got stolen from him, we can rely on that. The Gemara, but vidilme, it's tarech lezuzi v'zovin. Even if this person doesn't usually sell these dishes, these kalim, but maybe he was short of money and maybe here we should still be chayshish that he did sell. In such a case, since it's not common for this person to sell, and there's just a general rumor that it got stolen from him, that's good enough to rely that it probably got stolen from him, and he can claim it back from this lekeach. So the Gemara here, the Gemara discusses the halacha b'negei to this case of a ganev and the lekeach, and now the balabas, the owner, the original owner, wants to come and collect his chayfetz that got stolen from him. How does it work over here when he comes to collect this? Itmer, so we learned the machlek is gonav u'mochar. A person stole something and then he sold it. And then we now found who the ganev is. And now, where's the chayfetz? It's not in the possession of the ganev anymore, it's by the lekeach. Rav, Mishmei Rab Chia Omar, Rav says in the name of Rab Chia, Hadin Imarishain. The owner has to come to the ganev, and the ganev is the one that has to pay. He has to deal with the ganev. He can't go to the lekeach to ask the lekeach to give it back to him. The lekeach is not, the lekeach is already a different person that he has no shaykhs, so he didn't steal it from the ganev. The Gemara is soon going to explain what this is talking about exactly, but this is simply what it's saying here. Rashi here actually adds that if the owner wants to take it from the lekeach, he's going to have to pay the lekeach and then he can take it from the lekeach. But otherwise, he has to go and deal just with the ganev. Rav Yochanan Mishmei Rav Yana Yomar. Rav Yochanan said the name of Rav Yana, no, Adinem Masheni. The balabas has to go to the lekeach and he gets his kalim from the lekeach. He tells the lekeach, this doesn't belong to you, give it back to me. Now, the lekeach is sort of going to be stuck. The lekeach is going to have to deal with the ganev to get reimbursed for the money that he paid the ganev when he bought it. So now Rav Yosef explained and said, they're not really arguing b'chlal. V'loi pligi, there's no machlokes here between Rav and Rav Yochanan. Kan lufnei yush. Over here, according to Rav Yochanan, that said that the owner goes straight, he can collect his kalim that are now in the buyer's possession by the sheni. That's lufnei yush. If there was no yush over here, so then hadinem hasheni. So then he can go straight to the second person and take it from him, because if there's no yush over here, so then the sheni did not acquire anything. Even though there was a sheni rishos, it went from the ganev to the lekeach, but if there's no yush, then he doesn't acquire it at all. So therefore, the owner can come to the sheni, to the buyer, and take it straight back. Now the buyer, the lekeach, is going to have to deal with the ganev to get reimbursed. But Rav was talking about when it was after yush already. So then, what the buyer bought, there was yush, there was a sheni rishos, he acquired it, and now he keeps it, and now the owner has to go to the ganev to get reimbursed, to get paid for the gneva. Adinam arishin. So then the owner goes to the rishin. And the Gemara explains, V'tarvayu islu de Rav Chisda. Both Rav and Rav Yochanan hold of the statement that Rav Chisda said, that we had earlier in the beginning of this Pedic here. What did Rav Chisda say? Rashi quotes again what Rav Chisda said, Gozal v'lo nisyashu abaylim, in the case of a gzela, and the original owner was not miyayish, and now the gazlan sold it to someone else. From who does the owner come to collect this gzela? So Rav Chisda said, in a case where there was no yiyush, so then he can go to the ganev and collect the money for this, or he can go to the lekeach and collect from it. He can take the object itself that's now in the possession of the lekeach. Since there was no yush, he takes it from the lekeach. That's Rav Yosef's shot. Okay, so according to this, it comes out that there's no argument here. It depends if it's before yush or after yush. Rav only said his halacha after yush. If it's after yush, then Rav says that hadinim arishin, you can only go to the first person. After yush, you have nothing to do. You can't go to the lekeach at all. Abaye asks on this, v'loi pligi. There's no machlokes here between Rav and Rav Yochanan, even before yush. And Rav here, he's going to ask, you see here that Rav really holds that even before yush, the lekeach, the owner, that is, the owner could only go to the rishon, to the ganev, and he cannot go afterwards to lekeach. Where do we see this? The case of matnas kohona, kilifne yush dami. those portions over here, it's going to talk about the matnas kuna, the portions of an animal. There's certain portions of the animal, the zroya, the lechayayim, and the keva, that you have to give to a kohen. And those gifts that you have to give to the kohen, this is something that the kohen is never meyayish on, even if it gets stolen and it gets sold to someone else, because ultimately the kohen knows that whoever has it now is going to give it to the kohen. So there's no yish on this. Okay, so now, if the kohen never gives up on it, if there's a person that shechted a behemah, and instead of giving the sections of the animal to the kohen, he went and sold it to someone else. The kohen is not meyayish. The kohen thinks that he's going to get it from the lekeach. So there's no union of yish on this. Now the Tnan upligi. Second upligi. The Gemara says, and we still see that there is a machlokes here, and Rav, as we'll see over here, even in this case, argues and holds even before yish that the owner only goes to the rishain, to the ganev. Why? Because the Tnan, we learned the Mishnah that says like this. Amaloi mechaylim me'eh shel para. A buyer comes and says to this person that has a cow that he shechted, sell me the meyeha, the stomach of this cow. And in that section that he tells the seller to sell him, there was also portions that belonged to the kohen. And nevertheless, the buyer told the seller, sell it all to me and I'm paying you for it. So now nice non the kohen. Now the kohen comes to the buyer and says, give me my section that belongs to me, the matanis. So the buyer has to give it to the kohen. And the seller does not have to now reimburse the buyer because now he had to give away a portion of what he bought to the kohen. No, because this is what the buyer asked for. The buyer asked for all of it, including that section that he knows is going to be going to the kohen. But if it's not, the buyer didn't ask specifically, give me the me'ayim, the stomach, which includes the keva, a certain section that goes to the kohen. The buyer just said to the seller, sell me meat with this and this weight. Okay? And now the buyer discovers in the meat that he bought that there's a section that he sold him that he can't do anything with it. He has to give it to the kohen, and he never asked for this. So in such a case, the halacha is that the Bach says noisen the kohen. He has to give that section that belongs to the kohen to the kohen. And now here the seller is going to have to reimburse him for giving him this portion that he had to give to the kohen, because he never asked for this section of the animal. He just said weigh me meat, and he gave him a portion that belongs to the kohen. Now this Rav explained that over here, when it says that he has to give it to the kohen, and then he's going to have to go back to the seller to get reimbursed, that's only in a case where this buyer went and took for himself this portion that he bought. But if the butcher, the seller, he's the one that took this section and took it and gave it to this buyer, then hadinim atabach. So then, in this case, then the kohen is going to have to deal only with this butcher that sold it. The butcher himself, he's the ganev. If the buyer went and took it, so then the buyer is the one that's taking the matana that belonged to the kohen. But if it's the butcher, the seller, he's the one that took this section and gave it to the buyer, so then he's the ganev. In such a case, when the kohen comes to get his matnas kohuna, hadinim atabach, he can't go to the lekeach of the ganev and collect it from him. He's going to have to deal just with the moicher. So what do you see over here? This is a case where you have the owner, the butcher, which is the ganev, and then you have the buyer. And over here, there's no yush, because by matnas kohuna, the kohen is not miyayish. And what does Rav say over here? That the kohen could only deal with the butcher, the seller, the ganev, not with the buyer. So we see over here that the halacha that Rav said before, that the owner deals just with the ganev himself and not with the buyer. Hadinim arishain. That's even in a case where there's no yiyush. Not like Rav Yosef said before in a case of yiyush. So the Gemara answers according to Rav Yosef, Eime av dinim atabach. Over here, what he was saying is that the kohen, if he wants, he can go and collect from the butcher. He has a choice. He could either go and deal with the butcher, or he could go and directly to the lekeach, because this is before Yush. And if it's before Yush, what's now in the possession of the lekeach is still his, and the kohen can go and collect it directly from the lekeach. This is like what we quoted before in the name of Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said before, in a case where there's no Yush, then really the owner has a choice. He could either go to the Ganav and collect it, or he can and ask money for what was stolen from him, or he can go to the Lekeach that now has the object and take it from the Lekeach. Before Yush, there's that choice, and that's what he meant over here. What Rav wasn't saying that in this case he can only go to the Rishon, in this case the butcher. He can go either to the butcher or he can go to the buyer. Now, what's the chiddush over here? Ma'al deteme, because in this case, maybe I would think to say that he can't go to the butcher. Why not? So the Bach adds over here, matnas kohuna, I would say that when it comes to matnas kohuna, ein on exales. This is something that it's not shaykh for it to be an exela b'chlal. The whole concept of exela doesn't exist yet. Wherever it is, it belongs to the Kayan. This is something that the Kayan never owned, never acquired. The Eibishter gave it to the Kayan. And therefore, no matter where it is, it always belongs to the Kayan. So therefore, when this matnas kohuna is now found in the possession of the Lekeach, I would say, wherever the matnas kohuna is, that's where the Kayan goes and collects it. So he can't go to the butcher, even though the butcher was the original owner of the animal, and he was the Ganav that took it and sold it to the Lekeach. But it doesn't matter. The matnas kohuna, wherever it is, was always the Kayan's, and therefore he could only go to where the meat that belongs to the Kayan actually is. Kamash Malon, that's the chiddush that Rav is saying over here, that even regarding matnas kohuna, the Kayan has a choice. He could either go to the butcher and collect the matnas kohuna, that he's the one that stole it, he's the Ganav, or he can go to the Lekeach where the matnas kohuna actually is, and there's no Yush here, and he can collect the matnas kohuna. Okay, this is all Rav Yosef's pshat in the machlekes of Rav and Rav Yechanan, or actually Rav Yosef said it's not even a machlekes b'chlal. So the Gemara, Ola Abaye dama pligi. Abaye disagreed with Rav Yosef. Rav Abaye said that Rav and Rav Yechanan are arguing whether the owner goes to the Ganev to collect what was stolen from him, or he goes to the Lekeach. So, b'may pligi, what's the basis of the machlekes? So the Gemara says, but Rav Chisda, they're arguing in this statement that the Gemara brought before, that Rav Chisda said, when a person steals and there was no Yiyush and he sold it to someone else, so do you have now a choice to go to either one, and therefore you can go to the Rishon, you can go to the Sheni, or no? Even in such a case, once you sold it to the Sheni, you could only go to the Sheni. You can't go back to the Rishon anymore. You can't go back to the Ganav himself. That's what they're arguing, whether we accept what Rav Chisda said or not. That's one pshat, according to Abaye. Another pshat the Gemara brings in this machlekes here as follows. Rav Zvid says the case where Rav and Rav Yechanan argued was Kogoin Shenisyashu Abaylim Biyad Lekeach. What happened was, originally when the Ganav stole it and when he sold it, there was no Yush yet. But then after the Lekeach bought it, then the owner saw that it's already getting sold to someone else. That's when the owner was Miyayish. But he wasn't Miyayish when it was still in the hands of the Ganav. So now what's the argument over here? So we have always in the Gemara says that if there's Yush and then there's Shini Rishus, so the Lekeach is Kaina. He doesn't have to give back this item. But over here, it was in the opposite order. There was first a Shini Rishus, and only afterwards was there a Yush, and that's the Machlekes. Mar Sovar, Yush Vachkach Shini Rishus, Kani. So one opinion over here is that if you have first Yush, and then it's sold to someone, then there's Shini Rishus, then you Kaina. But Shini Rishus Vachkach Yush, but if it's in the other order, first you sell it, and only afterwards there's Yush, like Kani, you're not Kaina. So therefore, you can go to the Sheni, you can go over here to the Lekeach to collect it from the Lekeach. That's according to Rav Yechanan. But Rav holds Loishna. It makes no difference that once you have both the Yush and the Shini Rishos, doesn't make a difference if first was the Yush or first was the Shini Rishos. Now the Sheni, the Lekeach is kind of this, and therefore, as Rav said, that the owner could only go to the Ganav, to the first one to collect. Why should there be a chiluk? Okay, there's still discussion achreinim about this. I think the Ketzai says that the pshat is that do you have to have dafke the Yush first, and only afterwards the Shini Rishos? So the Shini Rishos is like the heter. Once the owner was miyayish already, so then the Shini Rishos is considered to be a Shini Rishos after there's already a shtickle kinyan of the Yush. Or it doesn't make any difference. When the Shini Rishos was before the Yush, so the Shini Rishos, just like the original Gazlan, took it totally be'isr, the Shini Rishos is also totally be'isr. So the Yush after that doesn't help. That's the swat of it. There's a famous Ketzais that speaks about this, what's the difference in the order. Okay, the Gemara brings another pshat. What are we holding over here? A fourth pshat. What's the machlokes here between Rav and Rav Yechanan? A completely different piddush in what they meant to say. So Rav Papa says, Beglime, Let's say if it was a garment that was stolen. The kula amule pligi, no one's going to argue regarding the actual garment itself. The hadar lemare, that even after it's by the possession of the lekeach that bought it from the ganev, that garment itself has to be returned to the original owner. Over here, what are they arguing about? Something else. The argument is whether this that Chachamim instituted for the benefit of the people in a marketplace that are coming to buy, that they shouldn't be concerned that maybe the person that sold it to them is a ganev, and if they should be able to know that even if whatever it is that they bought, they won't have to deal with the ganev. If the owner then comes and claims it got stolen from me, the owner is going to have to reimburse them. That's the concept of takanas hashuk. Again, the point is that the lekeach is not going to have to figure things out with the ganev. No. The lekeach tells the original owner, you claim it got stolen from you, and you have an eye that it got stolen from you, I'll give it back to you, but you have to reimburse me. And it's the owner that's going to have to deal with the ganev. That was the takanas hashuk. Now the question over here is, regarding this takanas hashuk, whether it applies in this case. Rav says in the name of Rav Chia, what did he mean to say adinim arishain? Dine de lekeach. What he meant to say is that the din of the lekeach is the lishkel zuzi meganev. That rishon over here, we're not talking about who the owner goes to collect and take back his object. Does he go to the ganev or does he go to the lekeach? We're actually talking the opposite. We're talking about the lekeach. When the lekeach wants to get reimbursed for this object that now what he sees was stolen, who does he get reimbursed by? So hadin marisha means that the lekeach has to go and get reimbursed miganev, from the ganev. Meaning, when the owner comes to take back his item that was stolen from the lekeach has to give it back to the owner, and he can't demand any money from the owner. And now the lekeach is going to have to figure out how to get the money from the ganev. He's sort of going to be stuck. He's going to have to work to get the money back from the ganev. And in this case, there is no halacha of takanas hashuk, and the reason is because over here, when you know who the ganev is, Chacham did not apply this takana. The concept of takanas hashuk is, if someone comes to the lekech and says, this item of yours belongs to me, give it back to me. We don't even know what the ganev is b'chlal. So in such a case, Chacham said that you only have to give it back to the owner if he's paying you for it. And then the owner is going to have to figure out who the ganev is. But in such a case where we know who the ganev is, the lekech has to deal with the ganev. That's what it means, hadinim arishain, regarding the lekech. He has to go and deal with the ganev. Even in such a case, hadinim asheni, which means as follows: Dina de lekeyach de lishka mi balabayis. Over here, the lekeyach is going to take from the balabayis. If the balabayis wants to take back his item, he tells the balabayis, "Pay me for it." So sheni over here means, for him, it's the second person, meaning he bought it from his meicher, which is the ganev. But he goes back to the original owner, and he has to deal with him. But also by takanas hashuk, the takanas hashuk Chachamim applied is even in this case where you know who the ganev is. Nevertheless, the lekeach is protected. The lekeach, if the owner wants to take it back, the owner is going to have to pay, and the owner is going to have to now deal with the ganev. Can you say that in this case Rav holds that the takanas hashuk does not apply here? But Rav Hune Talmidei de Rav Hava. Rav Huna was the student of Rav. Chanan Bisha Ganav Glimet. So it was a story of an individual by the name of Chanan Bisha. Chanan, the bad one. So he stole someone's garment, Vizavna, and he sold it to someone. Asla Kamed Rav Huna, and now they came to Rav Huna, and the owner wanted to know who he should collect it from and who's the one that has to deal with the Ganav here. Amalela Hugavre. So Rav Huna said to the owner, Zil Shari Avitoch, go and open up or to pay. Pay over here for this. Avitach literally means this collateral, meaning he told the owner, you are the one that has to reimburse the lekeach. And then you're going to have to deal with the ganev. Meaning we see that Rav Huna was saying that this takanas hashuk, that the owner is the one that has to pay the lekeach, and he has to deal with the ganev, applies even in this case where we know who the ganev is. And says the Gemara, Shani Chanan Bisha, that case is different. This individual, Chanan Bisha, is a different story. Since he was a very bad person and a difficult person to deal with, and you can't get paid from him, it's like a case where you don't know who the Ganav is. Over there, definitely everybody agrees there's a Takanas Hashuk, that the owner has to pay the Lekeyach, and then the owner has to figure out who the Ganav is. Now, Omar Rove said a halacha regarding this takanas hashuk. Im ganav mufursamu, if you're a buyer and you buy an item from someone that everybody knows that he's a ganav, and you're still going and buying from him, there's no takana over here that if the owner now comes, that you're going to demand the owner to pay you, and he has to deal with the ganav. If it's meforsim, you know that this guy is the ganav. Why did you buy from this ganav? So the Gemara asks right away from the previous story. We just said that this individual, Chanan Bisha, he was a known bad individual, and he was meforsim v'asab b'takanas hashuk. And we see that Rav Huna said that this takana still applies, that the owner has to reimburse the likeach. And says the Gemara, this Chanan Bisha, the meforsim lebishusa, he was known for his bad behavior, and he was a very tough person to deal with. But libnevusa le meforsim, it wasn't the case that he was known as a ganav. So therefore, it's not the fault of the likeach when he bought it from him. So that's why Rav Huna paskin that the owner does have to reimburse this likeach for buying even from such an individual like Chanan Bisha. So here the Gemara is going to bring another machlekes regarding this takanas hashuk that we just said. When does this apply? We learned the following halacha: Ganav upara b'chayvay. A ganav went and stole something, and he pays up along with this item. Or ganav upara b'kefay. He stole and he paid up someone that he owed. He took something on credit, and he owed, and he paid up with this item that he stole. Loy also by takanas hashuk. So now the original owner comes to the malve, or comes to this storekeeper that got paid with the stolen item and wants to retrieve it. Over here, the takanas hashuk does not apply. This malve can't say, you reimburse me and you deal with the ganav. No, over here it doesn't apply. Why? Because the Amri, we say, loy adaita dahano yavis le midi. It's not, when you gave the loan, or when you gave this person on credit, it wasn't for this item here that you're getting paid with now. The takanas hashuk is only in a case where you're buying this item. You're paying money now for this item. And now the original owner comes and says it belongs to me. So Chacham were masakin that people shouldn't be afraid to buy things, that the original owner has to reimburse the lekeach, and he has to deal with the ganav. But not in a case time where you lent someone money, or you're a storekeeper and gave someone on credit, and now it turns out that this guy paid you with a geneve. It's not that you will lechatchila buying this item. So in such a case, the takanas hashuk doesn't apply. Now, I'm going to get to mashkanta. In a case where you lend someone money and he's giving you a mashkin, he's giving you a collateral. So over here, this is a case seemingly where the entire loan is all based on you relying on this mashkin. So in such a case, if the guy gave you a mashkin which was stolen, maybe the takanas hashuk should apply. So the Gemara says it depends. Shavi masam b'meya, if the mashkin that you got, the stolen mashkin that you got, was double the value, it was worth 200, while the loan itself was 100, also by takanas hashuk. In such a case, definitely your entire loan was all relying l'chatchila on this stolen object here. So therefore, you tell the original owner that you deal with the ganav. But if it's shaveh b'shaveh, if you get a mashkin that the value of the mashkin is the exact same value of the loan itself, so in such a case, that's not usually how, when you give a mashkin, you don't usually give shaveh b'shaveh. Usually you borrow, let's say, $100 or whatever it is. You give a gold watch, you give something that's more valuable even than the loan itself. So if it's something which is shaveh b'shaveh, it's equal to the value of the loan. So Ameim Rama loyaseh b'takanas hashuk. Ameim says there's no takanas hashuk that applies over here because this loan, you're not really relying. The loan was not just based on this mashkin. You have the mashkin, but really the loan is based on trust. So therefore, over here, the takanas hashuk does not apply. You didn't give the money because of this stolen object that you got. Mazutra says, no, also by takanas hashuk. In this case, you gave the loan in exchange for getting this mashkin, which turns out was stolen. So you only gave out the money because of this stolen item. So over here, you could tell the original owner, I'm not giving it back to you unless you reimburse me. The takanas hashuk does apply. Sagt die Gemara, Zvine shave b'shave, also by takanas hashuk. In a case of a sale, this is the original halacha of takanas hashuk. When you buy something and you buy it for its normal price, whatever it's worth, so then the takanas hashuk applies. Now, shave mei b'masa. When a person buys an object and he pays double for it, so in such a case, when the owner comes to retrieve his object, does takanas hashuk apply that he's going to have to reimburse him, and the owner's going to have to deal with the ganav. Rav Shesha says, Lo yasu bar takanas hashuk. In such a case, there is no takanas hashuk. And the reason is, if you're paying so much extra, what this basically means is that you're not buying this. This is something that you're giving extra money over here. It's just what you paid was not payment. It was more of a gift that you basically gave. So when you're asking the owner that's coming to retrieve his item to pay you for what you paid for this item, wasn't a payment. You gave a gift. So you're paying extra, you're giving 200 as a gift, that the owner doesn't have to reimburse you. Not even the $100, not even the value of it. He doesn't have to pay you back anything. Bava Kama, but Rava says also by takanas hashuk. Even in a case where you're paying so much extra, you're paying double, but still you paid for this item. He does the takanas hashuk does apply for it, even for the whole extra price, everything that you paid for it. There is a takanas hashuk that the owner is going to have to reimburse the lekeach for this. The Hilchase, the Gemara says the halacha regarding all of this is B'kulu asa b'takanas hashuk. In all of these cases, we do apply this takanas hashuk. Lebar miganav upada b'chayvai. Besides a case where a ganav pays up a loan with a stolen item, and ganav upada b'kefer, or he pays up a storekeeper that he owed money on credit. So in those cases, because it's not money that was given out based on this geneva, so over there takanas hashuk does not apply. Gemara brings a story about this. Huh? Well, the Gemara before said that if it's a ganav meforsim, it does not apply, right? So I don't think the Gemara is not excluding that. Rabbi said if it's a ganav meforsim, you can't blame. You should actually blame the lekeach. You bought it from a ganav meforsim; it's his fault. You can't demand from the owner to pay him back for this. Okay, Avimi bar Nozi, which was Chamua de Ravina. Avimi bar Nozi was the father-in-law of Ravina. Havamasik ba'u gavra arba zuzi. So he was trying to collect 4 zuz of an individual owed him money. So that person, ganav glima, he stole someone's garment, and asya ne'alei, and he gave it to Avimi. He paid up with this garment that he stole. Now, after he paid him up for these 4 zuz, he lent him again another 4 zuz. Then and then they found the ganav who the garment was stolen from. So now the question became, this halach over here in this case, who has to deal here with the ganav? So they came to Ravina. No. This person that was paying the loan that he borrowed from Avimi, so he paid it with the stolen garment. Okay, and after he paid it, he lent him again another 4 zuz. So they Ravina. They came to Ravina. Ravina said, Kamoi gonav. The first time that he paid, he paid with this stolen item for the first loan. Upara b'chayvai, v'loy boy l'meisavlei, v'loy midi. So for the first time that he stole the garment and he paid up for that loan. So over here, the takanas hashuk does not apply because the loan that you gave was not because of this stolen item. He paid you up with the stolen item, but it wasn't because of the stolen item. But over here, the second time though, that you lent him another 4 zuz after this ganav that paid with this glima, with this garment, paid you, shkoil zuzach v'hada glimi. So for the second time, over here, we can say the only reason why you lent him another 4 zuz is because of the fact that he paid you with this stolen item. So over here, the takanas hashuk will apply. Again, the rule is takanas hashuk applies in a case where you give out money because of the stolen item, like a lekeach. A lekeach pays because he's buying this item, which turns out to be stolen. So Ravina told his father-in-law, the first time you lent money, for that there's no takanas hashuk. That we already said before, that a loan and that later got paid up with a stolen item, there's no takanas hashuk. But over here, the second time though that he gave him 4 zuz, he only lent him again because he paid him with this stolen item, with this glima. That's why he lent him a second time. So for that, there is going to be a takanas hashuk, and therefore he can get reimbursed from the original owner. Maskef la Rav Kayin, but Rav Kayin asked him this psak din of Ravina. V'dilme, but no, who says? Maybe I could say like this: Glima bahani zuzi kamo yovin ele. So this glima, he paid him for the first loan that he borrowed, that he owed him 4 zuz, and then ganav apara b'chayvai. So he paid up this garment that he stole for the first loan, and then ganav upara b'kefai. Sorry, but the Gemara is saying over here is ganav apara b'chayvai, ganav apara b'kefai. So therefore, regarding the first loan, we consider this to be a case where the stolen item was used to pay up a chayv or to pay up a credit, and for that there's no takanas hashuk. And then, Barbaz Duzi Basrai, even the second time when you lent him the money after he paid you with this stolen garment, it's not you lent him the money, nothing to do with this garment. You just lent him it's a new loan, and you just trusted him. It has nothing to do with that garment. Some Rishonim actually say over here, the discussion in the Gemara over here is in a case where this garment was worth, let's say the Gemara here was talking about a case where the loan was 4 zuz, the garment was worth double, was worth 8 zuz. Right? So therefore the Gemara, Ravina had a svara to say that he gave him this garment that was worth 8 zuz, so therefore he lent him another time. But no, Rav Kayin said it doesn't matter. Even if you gave him this garment that was worth more, the fact that you lent him a second time, you don't have to necessarily say that it was based on now because of this garment, this stolen garment. It was a separate thing that you trusted him. Just like the first time you lent him money, you trusted him and you lent him without this garment that he gave you. The second time also, it wasn't based on this garment, it was just based on trust. So the question over here is, does the Takanas Hashuk apply in this case or not? Sorry. Igalgal Mil said this matter was, whatever, they were discussing this matter, and Amatul Kamed Rabavo came to Rabavo, and he passed like Rav Kayin. Ama Hilchasek Rav Kayin, they passed like Rav Kayin, that in this case, Takanas Hashuk does not apply, just like it doesn't apply for the first loan, it doesn't apply for the second loan. And his father-in-law here, Avimi, is going to have to deal with the Ganav himself. Okay, another story the Gemara brings. Here, the Gemara is going to discuss a case where you have a Ganev, a Likeach, and then a Likeach from a Likeach. Okay, so now the question is, what's with Takanas Hashuk in this case? So the Gemara, Narsha, Ganav Sifra. An individual by the name of Narsha stole a Sefer. Zovne le Papuna Betman and Zuzi. He sold it to Papuna for 80 zuz. Azal Papuna. Then Papuna went, Zovne le Bar Mechuzah. He sold it to a person from Mechuzah, B'mei Vezer and Zuzi, for 120 zuz. Okay, so now you have a Ganav and one Lekech and another Lekech, and the second Lekech paid an extra 40 zuz for this. Now Hokar Ganav, and now the Ganav was found. So what do we do in this case? Amar Abayes said like this. Lezel Mari de Safre, the owner of this sefer goes, V'yav le lebar mechuzeh, and he goes to this second buyer that has now his sefer in his hands, and he has to reimburse the bar mechuzeh tman and zuzi, but he only has to reimburse him for 80 zuz, which is what the first buyer paid for it. Because what Abai is basically saying is that Takanas Hashuk, that the original owner has to reimburse the lekeach, only applies to the first lekeach. And V'shakal Sifre, and he can take back a sefer, and now V'ozl bar mechuzah, and now the second buyer, which is the bar mechuzah, he has to go V'shakal arba mi papana, and he's going to have to get the remainder of what he paid, the other 40 zuz, because he paid 120 from the first lekeach, he's going to have to get reimbursed from the first lekeach. So the point that Abai is saying is, Takanas Hashuk only applies to the first lekeach from the Ganav, not by the second lekeach. Maskefla Rav asked on Abai's Psakdin, why should we say this? If Chachamim made a Takanas Hashuk for the benefit of a buyer that he should be confident to buy, to know that the original owner will reimburse him no matter what, and that applies even to lekech that buys from a Ganev, lekech mi buyer, a second lekech that buys from a first lekech, for sure that the Takanas Hashuk should apply. When the first lekech buys from the Ganev, there is a chance that the first lekech should have found out that he's buying from a Ganev. But still, Chachamim made a Takanas Hashuk, a second lekech from the first lekech. How would he be able to trace back and know that this was a Ganev? For sure, we should apply Takanas Hashuk here. So therefore, Rav Takapaskin, there is a Takanas Hashuk even for the second lekech. So therefore, Elam Rav said, Lezel Mari de Safre, let the owner of the sefer go. V'yav le lebar mechuzah mei ve'esrin zuzi, and let him pay to this bar mechuzah 120 zuz. V'shakol sifrei, and he takes back his sefer. So in other words, the whole Takanas Hashuk applies to the second lekeach, and then v'lezel mari de safre, v'lishkal arba mipapano v'tmanim menasha. And now the owner, he's going to have to deal with the Ganev, and he's going to take part of the payment from the Ganev that sold it for 80, and then another 40 he's going to take from the first seller. So he gets the whole 80 and 40, yeah, that he gets reimbursed for what he had to pay over here for this second lekeach. Okay, there's a whole. I think we're going to stop over here. We're going to have to figure out how to be mashal in Mitzvah, but yeah, there's a whole new sugi over here, whole new opinion. Okay, this will continue tomorrow.